welcome to another episode of You Can't Make This Shit Up, because you can't make this shit up. David Washington in Chicago, and Dan DeCero and Joel Huxley here in the Orlando area. I hope you're in Orlando. I didn't ask you before you got on here, Dan. But I'm at the University of Central Florida. Wonderful campus, and I hope to see you out here if you're around. So, David, I wanted to talk about the MetaCenter. And Dan, you've looked this thing up. I mean, you go to UCF. You should have a lot of insight on Central Florida as the MetaCenter. What's up?
Right, and the article had a lot to do with for over 50 years now we've been grabbing great minds from across the country to come down here and work at the Space Center and Walt Disney, and we kind of joked about it before we got on, but in all seriousness, it has been a breeding ground for innovation for well over 50 years now. And then you have the University of Central Florida, which has 70,000 students who come to the area, and then they fill these roles at these huge companies, and it's expanding far beyond Disney and the Space Center. As was mentioned in the article, there's so many companies that are starting here. It really is the center of, at least from my perspective, it's the center of like where you can be as a young person. Mm-hmm. I don't think that there's a better place to be looking for a job as a college graduate in the country.
Well, the University of Central Florida was founded and grew because of the space industry. We originally got the space industry, and then shortly after, Walt Disney, who was an innovator himself, really looking towards the future, decided that he was going to build Walt Disney World here. I guess I get, this is the Magic Kingdom. Shortly after, and he loved space. He loved space. He loved looking forward. So, what Tim Giuliani, when he spoke at the Meta Weekly, I think is what it was called. He spoke about the history of Orlando and how it's not about calling ourselves the MetaCenter, but the reason we are the MetaCenter is because of our history. And that's kind of where he approached it from. And I kind of agree that we have the talent here in Central Florida. We have those that will live in Orlando to just drive to Titusville and work at the space program. We have right here in right off the campus, we have the Navy Simulation Center. We are totally ahead when it comes to robotics and AI and all these different things that we're advancing. And nobody thinks of us as that. They think of us as just tourism. But think of how we're building our economy as we build on this metaverse, as it's been called in the past.
And I think we're starting to get recognition in other ways. I don't think, to everyone's hope who is here in Orlando, we've necessarily earned the title of the MetaCenter yet. But in a lot of other ways, I mean, we talk about it a lot in class for advertising. A lot of like the food industry, when they're trying to branch out into the national market. So like you have chains that have moved here from all over the country, such as we just got our first Raising Cane's. We have food coming in from all over the place. Chain restaurants that are looking to expand nationally, they come here to test how they would do in other markets. So I think you see a lot of traffic in other areas that could set up, what it could look like eventually for the MetaCenter. I think Orlando is starting to get some credit. You have people traveling here for Disney, for, school. And I think it's starting to get to that point. I think this speech that was given was like a good setup to kind of put us in the conversation for it. I think we're contenders. Mm-hmm. But I do think that we're starting to get that recognition in a lot of other ways. I don't think Orlando is necessarily just viewed as Disney. It really doesn't feel that way when you live here.
Well, we're trying to produce I mean, you talked about 70,000 students. I mean, we have one of the largest population student populations. I think second to Ohio.
I think it's Auburn.
I'm not sure, but we have a huge. We we get our interns from Intern Pursuit, so we get them right now. We get them from UCF. We love our UCF students, graduates, and everything because you guys are coming out with a totally different outlook. You don't look at it as a tourist region. You look at it as an opportunity for growth, and a lot of these high paying jobs that you guys are keeping here are important, and I think that's overlooked several times. But David plays in the real political arena with these types of things. So, David, what are you seeing?
It's a whole lot. Well, first, Orlando is very ambitious to want to be consider itself the center of the metaverse. And I've done a lot of reading and research into the metaverse, cryptocurrencies, things like that. Hey, they want to be what Miami is to cryptocurrency. The one thing about Orlando is that Dubai is also looking to become the center of the metaverse. And they're putting a ton of resources into making that happen and bringing people from all over the world to be a part of their vision of what the metaverse should be like. It's very ambitious. I know that the Orlando Economic Partnership, the MetaCenter, has brought on Kathy Heichel, who is considered the godmother of the metaverse. And she has been here. It's been, oh my goodness, about 2 years when Orlando and OEP first started talking about creating the metaverse here, the center of the metaverse here in Orlando. Very ambitious. One of the things that is lacking for Orlando is that Orlando, again, is not known for its technology. It's not known for its innovations when you compare it to the theme parks. Unfortunately, Orlando, Central Florida, always will be the town that Disney built.
Yeah, but
And
that's innovation right there. I mean, Walt Disney was an innovator.
yeah,
If
that's true.
I'm a big history buff, and if one person my dad idolized was Walt Disney, and I always like wondered why an architect focused so much on Disney. Why was he? Why was Walt on our walls? Why did he have books about him? Why was it Mickey Mouse or it wasn't Mickey? It was the man himself. And Epcot Center. If you've ever been to Epcot Center, it's all about innovation. It was all about the whole world is a stage, and each
Right,
part of our world is bringing something
right.
together. So
It's constant.
I think of Orlando as innovation, but yeah,
Right,
the theme park thing title has taken over, but
right.
that's because we forget about our history.
He brought the concept of the city of tomorrow. That's what Epcot it was supposed to be, the city of tomorrow. And Orange County Mayor Jerry Demings, referenced in his very first state of the county inaugural address 40 years ago. He talked about envisioning Orange County in the concept of the city of tomorrow and extending that vision. And so, yes, you're right. Disney is innovators of innovators. However, with the metaverse as presented by OEP, so forth and so on, it's not as front facing as say identifying
So,
with
so
the
I'm going
theme
to shout.
parks.
So I'm going to shout out another thing that people don't realize that our astronaut senator that actually runs NASA now lives
Yes,
right in Lake Nona. So
that's
like
correct.
He's a Orlandian. I'm going to get that wrong this time. But listen,
Orlandian?
yeah, he's here. Like he's
Yeah.
been here. He's grown here. So I mean, he now leads NASA because we Republicans defeated him finally. So we took him out of space and put him down to down to Earth, and then the president put him back in space. So
Yeah.
now Bill Nelson is another example of what we have. What we have. I mean, we have a space program. We have all of this stuff. Central Florida it should be in the conversation. That's all I'm saying.
But another thing about the concept of the metaverse being here, and to bring it closer to home, it wasn't until very recently announced by Orange County Commissioner Emily Bonilla that Buffalo and Christmas, two communities east of downtown Orlando, are going to receive universal Wi-Fi and help create some economic activity and connectivity. And Christmas and Buffalo are not the wealthiest communities in Orange County. They could be considered underprivileged. However, it's great to hear that there will be some sort of universal Wi-Fi available for those two communities. And that announcement, should have been highlighted also as we talk about, the metaverse. Orlando being the MetaCenter of the metaverse, you can't really access the metaverse if you don't have Wi-Fi, if you don't have the means to do so. And it's ambitious. I'd like to see a little bit more, not necessarily promotion or marketing of the MetaCenter. I'd like to see more involvement in the community outside of downtown, outside of the usual offices, of going to different community centers, community meetings, and talking to the public about what the metaverse is, why it's important, what its utility and value it could have for not just citizens here in Orlando or the tech workers who are attracted to Orlando, but universally how this affects all of us when there's so much doubt. And another part about this is that eventually J&W will like to have a space in the metaverse.
Well, you're working tirelessly for that. I mean, if there's somebody who, as a political innovator, just an innovator altogether, you have a huge focus, and that's one of the things you've been really drilling down to the interns and everybody. Like, if you're going to do something, you need to kind of focus in. What is an NFT? What is
Yeah.
this? What you're branching us out. But do you think the fear? I'm going to bring this up because we got to get political, and I'm going to bring this to Dan because he's probably unaware of it. But does something like the Orlando police chief, now the sheriff of Orange County, in taking on facial recognition downtown, and the report that he got, scathing report he gets from the Orlando Sentinel, which probably was deserved. Are those things going to hold us back?
Right. And I kind of have a piggyback question on this as well for you guys, since you guys are the political experts. How does other policy that's being pushed in Florida impact Orlando's chances of becoming the MetaCenter, right? Because you have the advancement of technology is a very traditionally left-leaning viewpoint, right? But then you have these extreme right, the supermajority, as you guys were talking about in an earlier episode, all of these bills being passed from the right. How does that affect the chances of Orlando being viewed as a contender for this position?
That's a good question. I think mine comes first.
Yeah. After that, I just want to know in general.
Yours is it trumps
It's a very good question.
it trumps the sheriff. We'll get back to the sheriff, but as a conservative, it does affect that mindset of hey, are we going to really, are we going to move into, are we going to move into Orlando? Now, the Republicans didn't play at all in the city election. I mean, yeah, we had candidates, um, but yeah, you didn't see the party look at Orlando and say, "Look, we're going to take out Buddy Dyer. We're going to really put a force." I mean, the elections all by itself, it would be an easy target for the Republican Party to go after it. I think they don't go after it as much as I kind of want to say they just don't have any reason to. I think it's because it has such a liberal lean now that they outsiders, that we are fighting the fight against the Tallahassee. I but then again, Walt Disney was going to move out to move its headquarters out to Lake Nona, and you don't see that happening until under DeSantis in the fight. So, yeah, good question. I think that our legislators might want to think about that and focus on tomorrow. Um, but yeah, David, I think it's a great question for you because you feel it in the liberal side of things. What do you think?
Mhm.
Do you think we're trying to tell innovators to keep the hell out?
Well, definitely not. However, I'll address your particular issue, and then also Dan's and your particular issue in regards to former Chief of Police John Mina, now Orange County Sheriff. Uh, there was a controversy in regards to the use of Amazon's facial recognition technology, which surprisingly, people thought that they were going to, move away from it, but it's still in
Still there,
place.
but people
It's
don't
still
realize.
there with the Orlando PD. And we talked about that several months ago. And I'd like to find that episode, but it is still there. So everyone be aware of that. There's some concerns about that, of course. So we could talk about that ad nauseum. Now, in regards to what you're saying, Dan, with the state legislature being controlled by the conservatives, and they're being able to dictate the agenda, and the governor being a Republican conservative, also being able to dictate the agenda, is the metaverse and everything that goes with it, crypto technology, cryptocurrencies. Is that a priority? Are they talking about it? Are they aware? Do they know the utility and the value of the metaverse? Are there investments being made through legislation? From what we have gathered in the past session, the past recent special session, there's no conversation about it. I'm I'm not surprised because a lot of times the legislators are the last ones to be really aware of what's going on. I believe locally, as we see with the Orlando City Council embracing the MetaCenter, we see advocates like Orange County Commissioner Emily Bonilla at least advocating for access to the internet, thus eventually access to the metaverse. We see those small efforts. The technology is moving so quickly. With AI, for instance, artificial intelligence, that is a game changer. As the internet was a game changer for how we do business, AI is a game changer on how we're going to do business. And I think that at a government level, we're just moving incredibly slow. And let's not talk about at the federal level. Oh my God, you ask someone about Bitcoin, and they're like, what? If you ask someone about what the current price of a Bitcoin is, they will have no idea.
Well,
No idea.
this is both sides, David. Because like, look, our Democrats focus on the social issues too. We get a little bogged down in things that aren't important because we only meet for 3 months. I mean, we only have a short legislative session, and then we have these special sessions because we have real problems that we have to deal with, and we come out with nothing, no solutions. So
See,
we
this is where the
truly
technology could offer solutions.
we could talk about Central Florida. If they weren't in Tallahassee and they were here in Central Florida, what would legislation look like?
Hmm.
Because I do think Tallahassee's disconnected from the rest of the state. If you look at all 67 counties and we send all these representatives up, 35 is going to be in Orange County, but it's
Hmm.
in Osceola. Osceola is
Hmm.
cow country. I don't care what you say. It's cow country. It's
Hmm.
cowboys and rodeos, and
Giddy
people don't
up.
look at it. People don't look at it that way, but they're not going.
Hmm.
That person's going to have to diverse from from just Osceola County to Orange County, or it's not going to be true representation, right? So that's a very good example of a district, lines that where's the power going to come from? It's not going to come from Orange County. It's going to end up coming from Osceola. And
Yeah.
if it does come, uh, the Democrat is from Lake Nona. Lake Nona's VA and cows. It's developing around that. So I digress and just say, look, I think our representatives, in our districts don't really reflect up in Tallahassee. Like we here have representatives when we had Carlos Guillermo Smith, when we have, Anna Escamani, wonderful people. But are they really pushing the business aspect? Are they pushing the fact that, hey, you guys are dumb to go this way when you could capture this? Are they aware that this should be their issue that they're selling to grow our state? Let's grow it, not shrink it. And
As you
and
stated,
go ahead.
as you stated at the beginning, bogged down in those social cultural issues in legislation. And like you said, I agree with you in regards to the business opportunity that the Meta Center could offer, that the metaverse could offer, that cryptocurrency could offer for citizens, visitors, and everyone else in Florida. And our local leaders aren't having that conversation. Our most vocal local leaders are not having that conversation. At the end of the day, it's not about what you look like, what you sound like, who you love, who you don't love. It's about the color of your money. And money has a way of equalizing a lot of things. And I believe we're missing a great opportunity here if we're not having this conversation. Again, there's a legislator in Maine who discussed putting part of our their electoral process on the blockchain. That's innovative. I love that idea.
Places
And
like
that's something, Dan, that our legislature could do, or at a very local level, have our city elections or county elections on the blockchain.
think of those northern places, how cold they are, and a lot of those businesses are home based businesses, less people on the roads, more job opportunities. So that's where they're thinking. So I don't know. Are we are let's challenge our legislators right now to you know let's get into the business mindset of legislation right now and focus on that. But Dan, from a young person's perspective, we're glad that you're here. So tell us what the universe, the metaverse looks like for your future.
Well, I can tell you this much for sure. You guys know that I transferred into UCF my junior year. I'm graduating this semester. When I started 3 semesters ago, almost next week, um, when I started, there was no talk in the university at all about AI. There was no talk
Mm.
about the metaverse. And what I've noticed is that it's hard to get through a lecture now without it being at least a topic. It's definitely a question that a lot of people are asking, coming from a creative field. What does it mean for the future? Are we going to see a shift in the job opportunities here in Orlando if it does become the center of the metaverse? are creative positions going to be reduced or increased, right? So
Mhm.
um, I don't necessarily know what it means. I know that I'm being educated about it, um, but I think a lot of concern is just around, is Orlando going to be able to handle the shift? Um, and what does it mean for the population, right? So we've already seen a huge growth in population with not only students, but people just moving to Florida. And if we're going to be creating these new jobs within the metaverse, we're still very much a mid-sized city. We're not like a New York or a Chicago or a Los Angeles with, you know, the buildings to house these offices that would, potentially be put. I just think that it wouldn't be the worst thing if the decision has to be made right now. I don't think it should be as black and white. Are we going to be the center, or what's the second step down from that for Orlando? If we're not going to be labeled the MetaCenter, can we be a central hub for it, or a standout city in terms of technological innovation, as we've been for the past 50 years? So I don't know what it means for Orlando, but I know that as a young person who's receiving my education, that it's something that's talked about a lot. All the questions that are being asked by my classmates are, am I going to have a job when I graduate? And I think it's going to be an interesting shift,
Yeah.
because
So UCF, UCF just moved into. I get this wrong all the time, so hopefully I did it right. Into the Pac-12. Is it called the Pac-12? So
Yes.
they've moved into the Pac-12. Now they're going to have a larger viewing audience, even though we couldn't win in the Pac-12 when we started. But that's a different story. Look, we moved into Pac-12. That's a step in the right direction to make sure that we are getting more television time for our sports program, and you get your advertising time. And I've seen the advertisements that UCF has kind of gotten into that mindset. We have a uniform day, which just represents the space program. We have so much to offer, and we're trying. I think this move to the Pac-12 is part of that strategy for UCF to start selling itself as that innovative university. And our sports program being better is now gotten us that in front of that conversation. So where we go next is we need to do implementation. We're already we're already planning, we're already talking about it. But if we're not implementing it, if we don't have our leadership implementing it, if we don't have Jerry Demings going to Tallahassee and lobbying for it, if we don't have Buddy Dyer up there in Tallahassee, we don't see them leaving their confines down here. We should have we should hear lots of stuff coming from Tallahassee when they meet, because our city and our county need to be talking about this and the implementation, and where those legislators can help them, instead of fighting over, whether we can have nonpartisan elections for our tax collector and et cetera. I mean, we I would love to see them, and stop talking about the damn convention center, right? Talk about the innovation center, right? That's what you need to be talking about. You need to
Yeah.
talk about the Central Florida, Convention Center as the innovative center for the Meta Center. Make it the Meta Center. Do something strong and bold, but get off your butt and do something. Now, we spend too much time not implementing, and I think that's the word we need to talk about right now. So that's my final word: implementation. Legislators and the city and the county get together and start this implementation of the Meta Center, or you'll never see it.
I like to see more of the Meta Center, front facing in the communities, talking with community leaders and advocates, and having those conversations with the public, with ordinary citizens who don't travel downtown, don't travel to, the Orlando Economic Partnership, or have any idea what the MetaCenter is. I know there was a big event at the Dr. Phillips Center that if you weren't really plugged into the tech community, it for involvement at a local level, and getting people who are not necessarily in the technology field, who are on the peripheral or outside of this bubble, to be more aware. And there's so many opportunities and possibilities out there. So many. And Orlando is a small town with big city aspirations, and I just don't think the current Central Florida leadership is, not all of them, but a vast majority of them are just not ready to hear what the metaverse, MetaCenter, crypto technology, all this stuff has to offer, and how it can benefit as far as utility and value for our communities.
Hey, we need to ask John Morgan to come on, because he was the first one to be in the Meta commercial. So that's a little humor for today. But David, I'm so happy, Dan. I'm so happy that we could talk about this, because our eyes are wide open. We want their eyes to be wide open to the possibilities, and this is forward thinking, just like the innovation that we want to see.
Right, Dan, do you have any closing words?
Yeah, my closing words is that I think Orlando is at a very unique crossroads. So we'll see if there's. I do think that to Joel's point, you see big shifts in how the college is making changes. Joining the Pac-12, a lot of changes that can encourage expansion. I just hope we don't see, legislators and people in charge being scared of growth, which I think we've seen some recurring themes in a lot of the topics that we've talked about. Some of our higher ups, not to name any names, attacking, big corporations who bring in all of our money. And I think it's going to be interesting to see if we are the city of innovation, or if we're afraid of it. So I think Orlando has full control of its own future, and I'm interested to see what's going to happen with it, but I am here regardless for the long haul. So I'm not going anywhere. I know you guys aren't going anywhere. So win or lose, we're here with Orlando. So
all right.
we'll see how it goes.
Like, share, and just subscribe to keep us informed on what you think's going on and what we can do to help our legislators move forward.
Indeed. Thanks, everyone.